Thank you, Mr. Egan. Did he say 40 years? I've been here a while, but not 40 years. Maybe I heard wrong. I think they were asking, there's a projector with the light open, and it makes everyone feel like they're being interrogated or arrested, so I don't think it was that lens. Anyway, thank you so much for inviting me to be here this morning, and it's such an honor to speak to you. And it's actually the third time I've been asked to speak at a baccalaureate, which again is a really tremendous honor. But the thing is, I'm just not that smart, so as to come up with like something new and wise to say every year. So if you've been here before, feel free to just jump on in with the parts you might have heard before. Anyway, so you want to hear a story? Yeah. Of course you do. We all like stories. It's like we're wired to listen. As soon as someone says, once upon a time, they have our attention. We like to read stories, we like to watch them. And I want to talk to you this morning about stories. One big reason we like stories is because stories say something to us. They help us work out our lives. And of course, the Hunger Games was a big story this year. And it's not hard to figure out why. In the Hunger Games, we see good versus evil. We see the inhuman, oppressive forces of power and wealth and big government controlling the weak and the innocent. And we live in a world where we often feel this same challenge. We feel powerless against forces out of our control. There's so much we seem to have so little control over. But in a movie, The Hunger Games, we get to see a regular person, Katniss Everdeen. She's just trying to get by in life, just like us. She loves her family deeply and will sacrifice for them, just like us. She looks good in a flaming dress of fire, just like, well, maybe not all of us. But we'll watch her and we'll cheer for her because, not to ruin anything, but in the end, somehow she'll prevail over evil, survive, just like we all want to. Or take The Avengers, a hugely popular story, movie story this spring. So we'll probably never see a portal to another universe open up in the sky and watch as skeletal alien creatures threaten our planet. But we do know that we will at times face impossible, insurmountable challenges in our lives, challenges that we hope to defeat. We might hope to cleverly outsmart them with the brains and wit of Tony Stark. Or dodge and weave through them with unlimited ammunition and whatever power it is that the Black Widow has. Or like the Hulk, we hope to find a way to harness and control our intense emotions so that they help us and don't hurt us. We also hope that our pants always manage to stay on no matter what. But in the end, we relate to them for what they relate about us. Probably the most significant cultural movie story of recent times, of recent years, is Harry Potter. I'm glad, like the Hunger Games and the Avengers, we'll see, right, how well they've stuck around in a few years, but Harry Potter's made his mark. Quidditch is actually a sport played on college campuses now. True story. Yeah, look it up. But Harry Potter connects so strongly with us, particularly with youth, for the same reasons all stories do. They're really about us. In Harry Potter, you have a reflection of most of us growing up. I mean, who hasn't at some time felt unappreciated and trapped in a cruel, ordinary world? Who hasn't believed deep down they were somehow different from everyone else, special and set apart? Who hasn't wanted to speak a secret snake language called Parseltongue? So that joke, did you notice, was just a recycled version of the Hunger Games joke? But in Viral Club, I'm just doing my part. Harry Potter's story, like all great stories, is compelling because it plays out some of the truths of our own lives. I mean, Harry fails and he succeeds academically, romantically, personally. He's not the strongest or the smartest, but he manages through his perseverance and dedication to ultimately discover and fulfill his destiny. And isn't that, in a sense, what we're all trying to do? So here we are, days away from graduation at Baccalaureate. And what is Baccalaureate? Like we do, I didn't know either, right? When I was first asked to speak, I had to do some heavy research. And I'll tell you what I found. According to Wikipedia, the baccalaureate service derives from the medieval European custom of presenting the candidates for the bachelor's degree, BACA, that's the BACA part, with laurels, or recognition, which is the laurel part. The baccalaureate ceremony is a service of worship and celebration of and thanksgiving for lives dedicated to learning and wisdom. A variety of things may occur at the ceremony. However, the one traditional requirement is that everyone wear colorful party hats and breathe helium balloons. Of course, that part is not true. Yet. But it was Wikipedia, so I felt compelled to change a few things, and I'm hoping now that it's on the internet, it will become true, and next year this place will really be jumping. So yes, Baccalaureate's a celebration, recognition of lives dedicated to learning and wisdom. But I don't think even that's what it is for us today. Maybe a few of you have dedicated your lives to learning and wisdom, and maybe you are here to celebrate that, but I suspect that's not why most of you are here. I suspect most of you are here because you have friends here, because you have attachments to this place, because a very significant part of your life story so far occurred with these people in this place, and you sense the profound need to recognize that now that it's coming to an end. I've been asking various seniors, I do this every year, how do you feel about graduation? And of course they're excited and happy, but many admit to being a little nervous about the future, and most admit to also being a little bit sad. And this is how things end. It's like reading a great book, maybe watching a great movie, and you're completely engrossed in this story, totally loving it, and then you realize it's the last chapter, it's resolving. Or the final song is about to lead to the credits, and you've had all this laughter, sorrow, excitement of the story. It's been so great and engrossing, but now it's over, and that can be a little sad. Graduation's a little bit like that. All endings are a little bit like that. But think of it this way. You're 17 or 18 years old. So let's say you're 17 or 18 pages into the story of your life. Did you ever notice in books how, for some reason, the story seldom starts on page 1? It's always page 3 or 4. I don't know why that is. But similarly, you probably remember very little about your first 3 years. I mean, they're like blank pages. So, how long is this book, this story of your life? I mean, I don't know, but the average life's pretty close to 80 years now. So, let's do a little math. If we discount those first blank pages, you're probably about 20% in, so say 80% to go. Let's say 60 pages on average up ahead. My point is that the difference between the end of a book and graduation is that this story isn't over. It's just the resolution of some intense and powerful scenes. This is just the part where the hero leaves his hometown to find adventure. Scout meets Dill and discovers Boo Radley. Huck Finn launches out on the river. Alice is following the hare and about to discover Wonderland. Romeo is left for the party where, unbeknownst to him, he'll meet Juliet. This is where Harry heads off to Hogwarts. It's just getting started, and I hope you're excited by that. This ceremony is about recognizing this moment. So this morning, in graduation later this week, these are moments of recognition and celebration of this key milestone in your life, because you're standing here ready to head out into the real world. And I hope you're excited by it. I'm sure you are. But not just for the freedom that represents, right? No more living your lives by bell schedules, for example. But more for the phenomenal, amazing times you are now living in, this time in history. I hope you're excited about life. Do you realize you're living in a golden era? A magical time? Perhaps the most amazing time in human history so far. It's easy to miss that. Last year I watched a Woody Allen movie, Midnight in Paris. It's a story about a writer. It's played by Owen Wilson. He's in Paris, but he's drawn to the golden age of the past. He thinks the present time is terrible and boring because back in Paris in the 1920s, there's F. Scott Fitzgerald and Ernest Hemingway, Pablo Picasso, and all these guys were around, and it's too bad, he thinks, that those times are gone. But it's a story. So, magically, he's able, at midnight, to return to the 20s. And he gets to meet and be with those people in that time. I mean, there's Fitzgerald, there's Picasso. While he's there, he meets a young woman who he falls in love with. But here's the thing. She doesn't see the 20s as a golden era, a golden age at all, because that's where she's from. That's when she's from. She longs for Paris in the late 1800s, because for her, that was the golden era. So, one night, it just so happens, Wilson and the girl find themselves magically back even further in time to the turn of the century, the late 1800s. The girl can hardly believe it. They meet Paul Gauguin, Edgar Degas, these legendary artists of this time period. But guess what? Those guys are complaining how their time is awful. Their era isn't the one. How amazing it must have been, they thought, to live back in the golden era of the Renaissance. And on it goes. I bet if it went far enough, there'd be some hunter-gatherer dude sitting around. Fire weak today. Best fire back in Paleolithic era. Right? So in the movie, the Wilson character eventually realizes, he figures it out, no generation sees the golden era they're actually living in. And he ultimately takes that knowledge back to the present in order not to miss the magic of now, right now. Yeah, the present presents a number of challenges. But we are living safer and more comfortably than just about anyone in thousands of years of human history. And if you doubt that, look up historical life expectancies. Shoot, a lot of you could do that if cell phones were allowed. Right now, you can use the entire internet in your pocket. How amazing is that? And you can look up levels of poverty, disease, war, living conditions of the past. For that matter, check out these things in much of the world today. We have it pretty good. And so here you are, in this amazing golden era, this magical time, with the best 60 pages of the story still ahead. You're here because this is the setting of some significant passages in your story. And you're sitting with many of the important characters in your story, and it's time for a change of scenery. It's time to turn a page. And if you feel that, if you sense the need to value that, to take a breath and reflect and be here today, I think you're practicing a valuable trait. The importance of seeing the value in now, in today. Reminds me of something Alan Watts once said. Alan Watts was a British speaker and writer. A few years back, one of my students showed a recording of Watts. And in it, Watts said, to imagine a musical symphony or a musical composition. What if the goal was to just get to the end of that composition as fast as possible? So the best conductors then would be the fastest conductors. And can you imagine Mr. Van or Mrs. Jensen just crazily waving their arms as fast as possible just to get to the end? And Watts says, you might have people rushing out to the symphony just to catch the final crash of the cymbals. And how silly that would be. But he observes, isn't this so often how we live our lives? And it probably starts in school, where you start on your path to success. Go to first grade, so you get promoted to the second grade. So you can get to third grade, and etc. It's on up ahead somewhere is the success and happiness. So, in middle school, keep going, don't stop, life's up ahead. High school, graduate from high school, go to college, but keep going. It's up ahead somewhere. And start your career, but don't stop, because you have to work your way to the top. Success and happiness are up ahead, so keep working, it's coming, move on to the next promotion, or the better job, or the higher salary, more stuff, and the next, and then one day, you'll arrive. And maybe one day comes. Maybe you're on page 40-something of your life story, and you go, wow, I've arrived. But I don't really feel all that different. Where's the contentment? Where's the happiness you were pursuing? Was it a hoax? Was it a trick? And Watts says, it was a hoax. It was a trick. Because it wasn't a race at all. He argues that a race is the wrong life metaphor. It's actually a musical thing. You're supposed to sing and dance all along the way. You might remember junior year. Good times? Yes. There's a pretty good chance junior year that you encountered the story of one of the great American dreamers, Jay Gatsby from Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. Thank you for not booing. But you might remember that Gatsby spent years pursuing the green light. This dream he had of being with Daisy. It was a girl that he'd lost. He'd met and lost when he was young. But he worked hard. He amassed a fortune. He threw lavish parties. He reinvented himself, all to reclaim this love with Daisy. But I hope you remember what happened in the end. If you somehow missed the story during junior year, spoiler alert, it didn't end well. First of all, there was no way Daisy could live up to Gatsby's imagination. He lived so far in the future. He so over-dreamed, over-imagined this girl and what it would be like that there was no way any reality could live up to that fantasy. So there was emptiness when he finally got there. And two, when it became clear it wasn't even going to happen, he sacrificed everything. She ultimately left him behind. It says he stared up at a cold, frightening sky and saw a grotesque world of empty dreams. He died. And one of my students once said, he kind of had to die, really. Where else could he go from there? He lived too long in the pursuit of this dream. And the problem isn't that Gatsby dreamed. In fact, if there's anything admirable about him, it's his ability to hope, but to a point. The problem is that he lived only for that dream, for that future, and he missed out on the journey. In the midst of his own elaborate parties, he stood alone and isolated. He lived only for an elusive future. And if you don't remember Gatsby, you might remember that other classic hero who set out as a young boy pursuing a great dream. He set out from home with a big dream. He was going to catch them all. course, parents, I'm talking about Ash Ketchum from Pokemon. But did you ever wonder why he needed to catch them all? Was that really necessary, all of them? He can only carry 6 at a time anyways. And you know what happened to him, right? Just when he was on his way through all those colorful cities, toward the reality of all 151, gotta catch them all, gotta catch them all, they added more. It never ends. According to my son, there are 649 different Pokemon types now. I think they've even got virus-type Pokemon, Ebola Chew, and Swine Fluosaur. We want to say, Ash, buddy, let it go. Just marry Misty, move back to Palatown, and enjoy the love of the faithful Pikachu. You already have it all. The point isn't to race through the story you're writing. You know, I lost a friend this year. He was a West High School grad, actually, but I met him a long time after that. Dr. Craig Rush. He was a scholar, entrepreneur, father. He left suddenly, he left way too soon. His children both went to West, actually, and his daughter, Candace, she's a class of 2007. She's now a writer, a poet. And she wrote a poem that she read at the memorial for her father, which is something you can't even imagine, so how brave and honorable that is. But I want to share it with you because I think it says some things about our life stories. It's called The End of a Good Book by Candace Rush. So death is like the ending of a good book. Maybe the conclusion was abrupt because there were characters you loved, and you wanted to see their story complete, filled with epilogue and resounding defeat of the demons in their way, and some bright new day. But not all stories end with a smile, and it might take you quite a while to see what the author meant when he left all those loose ends. And if their story numbered in hundreds of pages, filled with laughter and love of the ages, the last paragraph brings a sigh. Sad, another adventure passed you by, but at least at the end, you've seen a life well spent. It could be their story was an epic that took 10 books to tell, each one overcoming a new kind of hell, along the way gaining friends and some wisdom to sell for the price of your ear. And when the end draws near, you think it might bring some relief. Finally, they'll have some peace. Whatever the tale, there's always something you learn after the last page has been turned. You had the privilege to take part. Maybe you were the hero of their heart or the laughter in their dark. Whether you were a solution or a problem, the fact is you loved them for every word on every page. And as your memory replays your favorite scenes of them, remember to appreciate the end of a story well told by authors young or old, and the wonders their lives unfolded. Don't forget to hold them somewhere in your mind so you can reread the best of times. Pretty good, yeah? Insightful young lady. But now I realize this isn't a memorial in a sense. We're not here because someone's life story has ended, right? Thankfully. But this is a memorial in that we are here at an ending. It's the collective ending of a significant chapter in your life story. And as you sit in this room for probably the last time all together, think about the story you've told. Consider your role in each other's stories. You've brought laughter and sorrow, and undoubtedly been a problem and a solution to each other. And as this chapter closes, you get to carry each other on to the next page. As your memory replays your favorite scenes of them, remember to appreciate them. Don't forget to hold them somewhere in your mind so you can reread the best of times. So here you are, 18 pages in, 80% up ahead. And now it's off to write the 80%, and that's exciting. What will happen? I don't know. You might not even have 80%. Maybe not 60 pages left. Maybe only 30 or 15 or 5. You could die today, tomorrow, in 10 years or 100. Some stories end too abruptly. Others are epic. There's no guarantees. All the more reason to make it matter. Will you succeed? Yes. Will you fail? Yeah. Will it be an epic, amazing, exciting adventure? Well, I suppose that depends in large part upon you. How good your story will be? Well, you get to write that answer every day. I love the question Mary Oliver asks in her poem, The Summer Day. It's a quote I found. My daughter actually showed it to me. She used it as her senior quote. Mary Oliver, after observing the peace and beauty of a summer afternoon and the afternoon's ending, and she reflects on life and how things end and too soon. But she answered this question. So tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life. Your one wild and precious life. What will you do with it? It's happening right now. It's not later. It's not up ahead. That's one difference, by the way, between book stories and movie stories. In book and movie stories, there's always a climax up ahead somewhere. Everything's building towards some ending where everything's resolved. Yay, Voldemort's dead. Now I get married and have kids and everything's good. Or yay, the Tesseract's been captured and Thor and his mullet-headed brother off to space, and Tony Stark can finally have his date with Piper, or Pepper, whatever her name is. The thing is, in this life, there's no upcoming finale like that. Life doesn't work that way. It's one difference between stories and our lives. And that's important to realize, because otherwise we go through life thinking, well, if only I have this, or if I only have that, then I'll be happy. And it doesn't work that way. There are many climaxes. Graduation, right? Or you get married, or you get in your dream school, or you get the promotion. But then a few weeks, or even days after the wedding, you discover the hard work of sustaining a relationship. No prince or princess charming makes life complete. You discover how much work it is to succeed at the school, or the increased responsibilities of the career. There's no grand moment where all is forever good, in this life anyway. And that's the problem with the Pokemon life model, with the Gatsby path. Whenever I live that way, I miss things. And like Mary Oliver says, doesn't everything die at last and too soon? One wild and precious life. Years ago, right about the time my first child was born, I heard a story from a guy, and I was at a conference. He was talking about the birth of his first child, his little girl, and he talked about standing in the delivery room in the middle of this amazing event. They wrapped up the baby and brought her to him, and he held her in his arms and talked about gazing down into that face. He was holding onto that little hand, and the fingers, or her little hand grabs onto his finger. But then he said, I made a mistake. And I was thinking, oh, did you drop the baby? I was young. He said, no, I made a mistake. He said, I blinked. He said, I blinked. And when I opened my eyes, I was still holding my little girl's hand, but now I was releasing her hand and placing it into the hand of another man on her wedding day. He said he blinked. And what he meant was that he got so caught up in a busy, mundane life story, working, chasing stuff, chasing Pokemon, if you will, he missed out on the best life story. And that story's helped me so often in my life to remember this and to edit out unnecessary things. It helps me stay focused on the present. It helps me keep my eyes open. In 2 weeks, it will be 18 years since my little girl was born. It was a chaotic afternoon with a lot of motion and activity and running nurses and push and moaning and groaning. And it culminated in the use of this device, like this giant suction cup thing with a handle. But see, I'd love to tell you the rest of the juicy details of that story, but the little wrinkled baby girl that came out of that day is now a full-grown lovely woman and part of the class of 2012, and I don't want to embarrass her any more than I already have. Simply by being at her school every day of her high school life. She wishes she had $1 for every time she heard, hey, can you tell your dad to give me an A? But next year it's off, sister. I can tell all the embarrassing stories I want. It's been an amazing 18 years. I'm very proud of you. Very proud of all of you. For the most part, I think I've avoided blinking and missing it. It's still flown by, but that man's story helped me keep my eyes open. And it's been a great story. It's been a great time. I can't tell you all how to write your story. You really have to figure that out for yourself. No one can write it for you. All anyone can do is share their own story and experiences and observations, and you observe and you start writing. You revise and you edit and you let it unfold. I hope you'll write a long, rich masterpiece filled with a strong supporting cast. I can't tell you what to write. I do think I can tell you not to chase elusive Pokemon or green lights on docks. And instead to enjoy the music and dance through life, and if that sounds reasonable to you, great. But what steps you dance, who you dance with, where you dance, why you dance, even if you dance, those are the amazing things you get to discover. It goes fast, no matter what. It doesn't seem like it, but it does. Someone once said, the days are long, but the years are short. I couldn't agree more. Think about it. All those tedious hours of homework and classwork, and writing essays, and solving equations, you thought it would never end, and then Poof, there you are, listening to Pomp and Circumstance in the West High School field. Or how about all those late nights, changing diapers, helping with homework, driving carpools you thought would never end. Then poof, there you are, listening to Pomp and Circumstance for your child on the West High School field. Keep your eyes open. Dance. Find a good supporting cast for the story of your life. The degree to which you enjoy the music of your life, the measure of the success of your dancing in your life, the true wealth of your life, it's going to come down to the relationships in your life. There's no time for losers in your story. Find champions. So, what will you do with your one and only one wild and precious life? The blank pages are waiting. I'm going to miss you guys. Many of you have been a rich part of my own life story. It's one of the great joys of this job. I get to share in a few scenes in your stories. I'm like a character actor that pops in for a little while. And that's really cool. I wish you a great rest of your life. I'm hoping 80 or 90% to come. I want to thank you for the opportunity to come and speak, and honestly to remind myself of what is so important. Life is short. It's happening now. Don't miss it. All right? Blessings, class of 2020.